We are joined by men's soccer head coach Stu Riddle, men's assistant soccer coach Ben Pirmann, and women's assistant soccer coach Nate Norman. And we're going to talk about the upcoming 2010 World Cup. First of all, just going down the line, starting with Nate, who your favorite is?
I think the favorite for me is probably Argentina, mainly because they have the best player in the world, Lionel Messi, and I think they have a ton of other good pieces around them. I think another team that could possibly win it is Holland. I think they have a ton of good players with Snyder, Van der Vaart, Robben, Van Persie. I think those two teams, both have a very, very good shot at winning it.
Any country you see as kind of like an outside shot, kind of a dark horse?
I think the USA could do pretty well. If they get rolling here, I think they got an easy first game. So once they get past that, it might get a little bit tougher. But
All right, and then I'm guessing you'd pick Lionel Messi for the Golden Ball winner.
Yes, definitely.
All right, Stu, your thoughts?
I think, it's hard to discount some of the teams that have been there and done it in the past. And when you look at Argentina and Brazil and Holland, Germany, but I'm going to throw my neck out this time and go with England as champions, beating Spain in the final.
All right, and same thing, you're kind of dark horse. What country do you think could surprise some people this year?
I did a little bit of research, and I think that Mexico and Chile are probably teams that could shock a few people unexpectedly. But they're both going to face tough opponents in the second round should they get out of their group. So, I sort of to reiterate what Nate said, I think USA is going to be the team that surprises the world in this World Cup.
And then Wayne Rooney to win the Golden Ball?
Or Fernando Torres.
Or Fernando Torres.
Depending on who's going to win the World Cup there. I think David Villa's probably got a good chance as well with the amount of chances and goals that are scored by Spain, but either Rooney or Torres, I think.
And Ben, your thoughts?
I think Brazil are going to win it. I think they're playing the best right now out of anybody in the world. I think Luis Fabiano is going to win the Golden Ball because he's going to score all their goals for him. And I think the big surprise team will be Australia. I think last World Cup they were sort of cheated out of doing a lot better than they should have, and I think they're even better now.
All right, Stu, you did represent New Zealand was the under-23 team. How did it feel to represent your country?
It was a wonderful experience. I felt very fortunate at such a young age to be called into that age group of players at just 19. It was a wonderful experience to go away and spend time at camps and then be involved in an Olympic qualifying tournament. 6 of those players that I played with are currently in South Africa with the World Cup team now, which is kind of unusual but nice to see. But very fortunate to have got that experience, and it's something that opened a lot of doorways for me as a player and has done so as a coach as well.
Now, obviously you're excited to see New Zealand in there for just the second time in the country's history. Can you just talk about how you think they'll do this year?
I think the beauty of New Zealand being in the World Cup is that no one expects them to achieve anything. It's sort of a remarkable achievement for them to have made the World Cup, having gone through the Oceania qualifying process and then beaten the 5th best team out of Asia, Bahrain, to do that. So, the country's right behind the team, which is unusual, being predominantly a rugby and cricket nation, and everyone's sort of turning the focus to the All Whites now and hoping that they can get a result. So fingers crossed they can snatch something. I think they've proved in the warm-up games that they're a little bit more competitive than they have been in the past. They beat Serbia last week, which was quite a unique result in Europe. So maybe they'll snatch a result. If they don't, it's just great that we're there.
And then, Nate, you represented the United States at the youth level. Can you just talk about that experience and how it was to wear the red, white, and blue?
Yeah, definitely it's always an unbelievable honor when you get to play, for the country that you live in and grew up in, and to be identified as one of the top players, at your age in the country. And I think, as a player, it like what Stu said, it did wonders for me with my confidence and opened up doors not only for playing experience, but also, as a coach too. I got coached by some very, very good coaches throughout my youth time with the national teams, and learned a lot from them. But overall, it's just an awesome experience to be able to be identified and be able to go out and on a field and represent your country against other countries. There's probably nothing better than that.
All right, now obviously the really big matchup to start off the World Cup is the United States against England. The 1950 United States upset England 1-0. And we just go down the line, and then who do you think's going to win?
Yeah, I think the U.S. could pull it off. A lot of people are giving England the edge, but when you look at it, those English guys, if they lose it, they're going to remember that for the rest of their life. There's no pressure on the U.S. guys. No one's expecting to do anything. I think England's kind of in shambles with a lot of their injuries too, and I think the U.S. is gonna find a way to come out with that victory.
Stu?
It's going to be a great game. No matter what happens, I think, despite the fact that I chose England, to be in the final against Spain, I think USA are going to get some form of result out of this match, whether it's a win or a tie. I still think England will qualify from the group and then push on from that point. But I think USA have shown as well in their recent warm-up matches that they're a force to be reckoned with. And they handled an Australian team 3-1 last week. It could have easily been 4 or 5. And Australia are a team that Ben said are going to be a strong contender in this World Cup as well. So it's going to be an excellent match, and I really think that it's going to be a tough one for England to get the win out of.
Well, I just don't think that USA are going to be able to compete. I think the game means a lot more to England than it does to the United States because all the pressure's on them, and I think they will be able to handle the pressure. They've got all the best players in the world. Like Stu said, they're going to probably be in the final, at least deep into the tournament, and they're going to handle the U.S.
Now, as coaches and knowing the way that qualification for the second round is, would you even see the United States maybe playing for a tie just to try to get that 1 point and have a little breathing room?
It's probably something they've considered. I think any form of result in that first match is going to do wonders for their confidence, and of course, take them into that second game with an edge over the opponent. So it's maybe something that's crossed their mind. I don't think anyone would go out and try and play for a tie or a light loss. I think USA are at this point of their progress as a soccer nation where they can compete with teams like England and go out and realistically try and win those games.
Yeah, I mean, like Stu said, I think that, obviously with England being the stronger team, simply having the better players, that it wouldn't be out of this world that, they haven't at least talked about it. And if you get deep into the second half, and the score is 0-0 or 1-1, you can see the U.S., starting to sit back to try to gain a point to just get something out of the game. But it's hard to say that they would go in there planning on getting a tie because often you do that, you end up losing the game regardless. So.
Now, do you guys see any other surprises happening for the World Cup? Any countries that obviously Stu feels that Mexico and Chile may be standouts, but any kind of relatively unknown players that may kind of shock the world here?
I think we've got a chance to see someone from the US really, make a name for himself, and he's done exceptionally well in the MLS recently with Edson Buttle and the goals he scored in the MLS, and he scored 2 goals against Australia just last week. So he may be one to keep an eye out on. As far as the 2 teams I mentioned, I think the lad Javier Hernandez that's just signed with Man United from Mexico, maybe a player to watch, and Alexis Sanchez from Udinese in the Italian Serie A, maybe the player that sparks Chile's action forward.
Yeah, I think I think South Africa are going to do well. I think they're in the toughest group with France and Uruguay and Mexico. But I think that they're going to get out of their bracket. Every single host of the World Cup has made it to the second round, and I think they'll keep that going. Not that he's unheard of, but Steven Pienaar from Everton is probably one of my favorite players in the tournament. I just think he's just got a different dynamic than most people on that team and in the group. So I mean, he's not a surprise player, but I do think he'll be one of the best players in the tournament.
All right, we're going to take a quick break.